The coffee hit the floor before her brain caught up. Just the sound, ceramic against tile, a wet splatter, made our son flinch from the hallway. She didn't even glance his way. She was too focused on me. Or rather, on what I had just said. I didn't repeat it. I didn't need to. The words had already carved themselves into the silence. Practicing for when you're gone. She stood there frozen, holding the handle of the broken mug like it might explain something. Her lips opened slightly, like she had a comeback ready. Maybe some half-hearted joke or a guilt-tripping deflection, but nothing came out. I calmly reached for a paper towel, wiped up the coffee like I'd done 100 times before, and dropped it in the trash without looking at her. I made his lunch, I said, zipping up our son's Spider-Man lunchbox. Pancakes in the thermos. He likes when I cut them into little triangles. Still no reply from her. Just wide, mascara-smudged eyes watching me like I'd grown a second head overnight. I slid the lunchbox into his backpack, grabbed my keys, and paused just long enough to say, "Check your inbox," before walking out. And that was it. No yelling. No slamming doors. Just one quiet morning detonated by a single sentence she never expected. You could practically smell the fear starting to rise off her skin like steam. To the people listening, yeah, you. Over 90% of you hear stories like this, feel something, and move on without hitting that little subscribe button. I'm not here to beg. But if you want us to keep doing this, pulling the curtain back on stories nobody talks about, hit it. It keeps the team going, and it tells the algorithm we're worth your time. Anyway, she had spent the last 4 months treating the house like a layover. Not a home. The late-night team dinners. The surprise client meetings. The networking events that somehow didn't include spouses. At first, I believed her, or maybe I wanted to. I played the role, made dinner, helped our son with homework, pretended the empty seat at the table wasn't a warning sign wrapped in lipstick and lies. But here's the thing about silence. It gives you room to prepare. She didn't know about the night I waited up in the garage with the lights off. I sat in the dark, arms crossed, while her car pulled in at 12:47 a.m. I watched her adjust her hair in the rearview. Watched her text someone, smiling. She didn't know about the second phone I found under the passenger seat when I vacuumed the car for her birthday. Or the lipstick stain on the passenger side vent. Smudged. New. I didn't explode. I didn't cry. I didn't confront. I documented. That morning, she was still riding the illusion that she had the upper hand. That I was just some tired dad too distracted with bedtime stories and grocery runs to notice her slipping away. But here's the thing she didn't get. I wasn't cold because I stopped caring. I was cold because I stopped pretending. There's a difference. She stood in the wreckage of her own performance. Bathrobe, wild hair, that pathetic little gasp she made when the cup hit the floor, and realized, maybe for the first time, that the script had changed. And she wasn't the one holding the pen anymore. Sunday mornings used to mean waffles, cartoons, and my son running down the hallway in his superhero pajamas. She used to join us. Used to. These days, she didn't even pretend to be part of that ritual anymore. Sunday morning was just another hangover with a different story. So while I sat on the floor helping our kid build a Lego spaceship, she finally decided to open her laptop, probably expecting a calendar invite or some useless LinkedIn message from a guy she swears just sends networking memes. Instead, what greeted her was a cold, silent folder. Draft separation proposal, initial review. No message. No angry manifesto. No accusations. Just that title, sterile, legal, final. She clicked it, expecting maybe a bluff. Maybe I was trying to scare her straight. But then she saw the first document. Custody proposal, weekday/weekend rotation. It was labeled clearly. Bullet points. Specific days. No dramatics, just logistics. The second file, asset division, phase 1 recommendations. Every account, every vehicle, even the storage unit she thought I'd forgotten about. All of it was there, sliced clean with no malice. Only precision. She kept scrolling. The third document was worse. Absence log, nights out, May through August. 87 dates. Timestamped. Each one showing her late returns home. Some had screenshots, her car re-entering the driveway. Others had journal entries. What our son asked me while waiting for her. The snacks I gave him to distract him. His drawings. The ones she never saw. On June 18th. Is Mom still alive? That one hit hard, didn't it? She scrolled faster, like speed might outrun the truth. But it didn't. Near the bottom, I'd attached an annotated calendar. Marked in yellow, every night she was at work. Marked in red, every school function she missed. End-of-year recital. Parent-teacher night. The day he was sick and asked for her. And finally, The night she came home at 2:13 a.m. and smelled like someone else's cologne, marked in black. She slammed the laptop shut like it had personally insulted her. Then just sat there, frozen, like the ghost of the woman she used to pretend to be. But here's the thing. She still didn't believe it. Not yet. She told herself I was bluffing. That it was just a warning shot. That I was hurt, not serious. Because if she believed otherwise, she'd have to accept the real horror. That I didn't yell because I wasn't trying to fix it. I was just done. She paced the kitchen later that day, muttering to herself like a criminal retracing steps at the scene of a crime. She wasn't crying. Not yet. She was calculating. Trying to figure out what I knew, how long I'd known it, and what I planned to do next. The irony? Everything she needed to know was already there, in the silence. In the fact that I hadn't included a single paragraph of why. No begging. No bargaining. No, we need to talk. Because when a man truly lets go, there's nothing left to explain. She picked up her phone, probably to text me some carefully crafted non-apology. I saw it light up from across the room and ignored it. Instead, I pulled another Lego piece out of the box and handed it to my son. Here, I said, this one's for the rocket boosters. Because some Sundays are for building. Others, they're for demolition. Monday morning didn't start with coffee or small talk. It started with her phone buzzing like a fire alarm. She'd been up all night pretending to sleep, the glow of her screen lighting up the bedroom as she scrolled through my files again and again, hunting for a crack. She told herself she'd call Susan first thing. Our family lawyer, the neutral friend who drafted our wills and our refinancing agreements, who had hosted us at her lake house last summer and laughed at our inside jokes. Susan was safe, predictable. Susan would tell her what to do. She dialed once. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. She sent an email, typing fast, a little too forcefully. Susan, call me urgently. We need to discuss my husband's documents. Hit send. Waited. Her phone buzzed a minute later. Not a reply from Susan, but an automated response. Neat and clinical. Due to a conflict of interest, I have recused myself from representation. Please refer to independent counsel. This decision is final. That was it. No greeting. No signature. Just a legal wall dropped right in front of her. She stared at the screen, reread it twice, then 3 times. Her mouth opened and closed like she was trying to breathe underwater. Conflict of interest. Recused. Independent counsel. The words sounded like another language to her, but I knew she understood enough. She had just lost the one person she thought would protect her. She slammed the laptop shut so hard the lid bounced, grabbed her robe tighter, and bolted out the back door barefoot. I was trimming the hedges, earbuds in, wearing a plain t-shirt and an expression she hadn't seen in months. Calm. Composed. Focused. Why is Susan dropping us? She blurted, voice high and brittle, the us, almost a squeak. I didn't even stop clipping. She didn't. I looked up then, met her eyes for a fraction of a second, and delivered the line like I was ordering lunch. She's representing me now. Her face drained in real time, all color gone, like watching a Polaroid develop in reverse. She reached for the patio chair to steady herself, nails tapping on the metal. You can't. She's always been. I clicked the trimmer off and let the silence do the work. She had no idea how many quiet coffees Susan and I had had in the last 2 months, how many late-night phone calls she'd taken after seeing my evidence, how easily she had agreed to switch sides once the truth was laid out. I set the trimmer down, wiped my hands on a rag, and gave her a look that wasn't angry, wasn't smug, just final. Call whoever you want, I said. But don't call Susan. She stood there, clutching her robe like a shield, the dew from the grass creeping up her bare feet, and for the first time, she looked smaller than the house she used to rule. She tried to speak again, but nothing came out. I picked up the trimmer, slid my earbuds back in, and pressed play on a podcast. Not music, just a podcast about bonsai care. She had no idea I'd started learning it weeks ago, quietly shaping little trees while she was out networking. Behind me, I heard the screen door slam as she fled back inside. The panic had started to bloom in her chest, full and choking. She thought she was losing a game. She hadn't yet realized the game was already over. The hedges were coming along nicely. She came home that evening like a ghost looking for a body, pale, hollow-eyed, moving through the kitchen in slow motion, trying to find something that hadn't shifted under her feet. The house was too clean, too quiet. Her own heels clicking on the hardwood sounded like gunshots in a tomb. Then she saw it. A manila envelope, plain, resting dead center on the dining table. No name, no seal, just placed there like it had always belonged. She hesitated. picked it up like it might burn her. Inside, a stack of printed pages, no header, no signature. But she knew who had assembled them. She didn't need to guess. The first line on the first page read, May 3 to 11:42 p.m. Did she fall asleep at work? Text. Long meeting, don't wait up, no answer given. Her breath caught. Below it, May 5 to 12:17 a.m. Is mom mad at me? Text. Just one more drink with the team, no answer. And on it went. A ledger. Meticulous. Unforgiving. Column 1. The night she came home after 11 p.m. Column 2. What her son had asked that night. Column 3. Whatever flimsy excuse she had texted. Column 4. The reality. No answer. Some entries were bare bones. Others carried weight. Like June 14th. June 14 to 1:08 a.m. Will she come kiss me goodnight? Text. Client dinner ran late. No answer. Underneath it, stapled, was a printed frame from our Nest Cam. Her heels wobbling as she tried to find the house key, laughing into her phone, a man's hand briefly seen at her waist before she swatted it away like a gnat. The third page was worse. Audio clips. She clicked one. Is mom home yet? His voice. So soft. Maybe 6 inches from the baby monitor. Whispering like he didn't want to wake anyone. Or like he was afraid of being heard. The static hissed, then silence. She clicked another. Why does she come home so late all the time? The rustle of bedsheets. The soft thump of him turning over. She dropped the page like it bit her. The rest of the pages stayed in her lap, unread. But they didn't need to be. They'd already done their job. They weren't for court. Not for leverage. Not to win anything. They were a mirror. A record of all the things she couldn't gaslight away. Not with excuses. Not with crocodile tears. Not even with the classic, I'm just tired routine. She sat there for 10 minutes without blinking. The evening sun crept across the floor and hit the table, warming the pages like it was trying to melt them. But truth doesn't burn. It just sits there. Cold. Heavy. Eventually, she stood up and left the envelope on the table. But not before flipping the last page over. I'd written one line there, in my own handwriting. He doesn't ask about you anymore. Nothing else. She didn't cry. Not yet. That would come later. She just walked upstairs with her arms crossed like she was holding her own ribs together. Meanwhile, I sat out on the porch, flipping through a photo album with our son, pointing to an old birthday party picture. Mom was at that one, he said. I nodded. Yeah, that was a good day. We didn't talk about the envelope. We didn't need to. By Wednesday afternoon, she was unraveling invisible threads, circling the house with the frantic pacing of someone who thought sheer motion might reverse time. The lawyer hadn't called back. The old us was dead silent. Her own son was quieter around her, watching her like she was a substitute teacher who didn't know where the pencils were kept. So, she made the only move she had left. She called her sister. Can you come over? Please. I need to talk. 20 minutes later, Amanda arrived. Ponytail up, flats on. That big sister in crisis mode, face already prepped. They hugged too long, and she clung to Amanda like a shipwrecked sailor clutching driftwood. No makeup this time. No pretense. Just baggy clothes and a woman trying to pretend she wasn't cornered. They sat on the living room couch. Amanda glanced around, noticing the weird quiet, the tidiness that felt more like a hotel room than a home. Still, she said nothing. They ordered Thai, her comfort food. Always had been. While waiting, she vented, loudly, bitterly, dramatically. He's cold. Robotic. Like he's planning something. Like I'm the enemy now. Her voice cracked, and she tried to force a tear. I don't even recognize him. He used to love me. Now I feel like he's just watching me drown and taking notes. Amanda nodded slowly, listening. But her expression wasn't sympathy. It was something quieter. Analytical. That silence only got heavier when the food finally arrived. Amanda got up to grab plates, walked into the kitchen, and saw the envelope. It wasn't hidden. Just sitting there on the counter, tucked slightly under a stack of mail. Its corner stuck out, revealing a faint red stamp. Curious, Amanda reached for it. Her fingers brushed the edge, and something told her, instinct maybe, that this was important. Inside was one photo. A glossy, full-color printout. Her sister at a bar, laughing, her hand on a glass of wine, and a man standing behind her. His hand was unmistakably familiar. Resting low, too low, on her back, fingertips just barely disappearing beneath her shirt hem. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't innocent. It was intimate. The timestamp in the lower corner told the rest of the story. A date from just 3 weeks ago. One of the nights she'd claimed she was closing a deal with the regional director, and it might run late. Amanda didn't shout, didn't hold up the photo like a gotcha. She just stood there staring at it for a long time, her fingers tightening on the glossy edge. Her sister entered the kitchen, half laughing through whatever excuse she was mid-sentence on, but froze the moment she saw Amanda's face. What? Amanda didn't answer. She simply held the photo up, slow and deliberate. And then her voice, flat and factual. He sent this. She nodded, breath hitching. I don't know. It was just there. Amanda's mouth pressed into a hard line. Who is he? She asked, still looking at the picture. She opened her mouth, closed it. Is this one of your co-workers? Amanda asked. The word co-workers came out like poison. Her sister said nothing. Amanda placed the photo gently back in the envelope, slid it into her purse, and grabbed her jacket. Wait, she called out. Amanda, please, just let me explain. Amanda turned at the door, eyes hard now. No, you had me fooled too. But this, she held the purse tighter. This explains more than anything you've said tonight. And just like that, she walked out, left the takeout on the table, untouched, left the door open behind her like even closing it felt too final. She stood there in the hallway, listening to the distant hum of Amanda's car starting. The smell of green curry and spring rolls filled the kitchen like a cruel joke. She didn't eat, couldn't. She just sat at the table staring at the steam rising from a dinner that was never going to happen. No fights, no shouting match, no scene, just truth, quiet, sharp, and surgical, one envelope at a time. Thursday morning arrived with a knock, not the frantic kind, not someone trying to alert or warn. No, this one was deliberate, precise. 3 taps at 9:12 a.m. from a uniformed courier holding a clipboard and a padded envelope. She didn't even check the peephole. She just opened the door like a woman expecting salvation. Certified delivery for Ms. Rachel Adler. The courier said, tone flat. He handed her the clipboard. She signed with fingers still trembling from a sleepless night, the black pen jerking like a lie detector under pressure. The envelope was heavy. Legal paper heavy. That dense, soul-sinking weight that tells you before you even open it, this changes everything. She tore the flap open in the hallway, breath tight. Notice of intent to file for separation and request for temporary custody. All caps. Bold. Times New Roman, 12-point font. Clinical. Unemotional. Deadly. Her eyes scanned the body, heart thudding louder with each paragraph. Filed under extended and repeated absence from the minor child's residence. Requesting temporary sole custody to the father. Referencing specific affidavits. And then came the attachments. She flipped to the first one. Statement of Ms. Karen Rivera, household nanny. A sworn declaration. Dates. Notes. Excerpts. Mrs. Adler was often not home at night. I would update her via text, but rarely received instructions back. There were several consecutive weeks where she did not initiate contact with her child during my evening shifts. Then the second. Statement of Ms. Hampton, first grade teacher. She has not attended a single parent-teacher conference this year. Communication is consistently through Mr. Adler, who provides support materials and attends all school events. And the third, Mr. Stein, aftercare program supervisor. Emergency contact has always been Mr. Adler. He is present at every pickup. Mrs. Adler is unknown to our staff. Each line sharpened like a scalpel. She stood in the hallway, shoes still untied, reading them again and again. Her hand clutched the edge of the doorframe as if the wood could stabilize her internal collapse. She wasn't breathing anymore, just heaving. Then she saw it. The bottom of the cover letter. Not a law firm's name. No shiny partner title. No polished signature block. Just one name. Daniel Adler. Typed clean. No signature needed. Her scream was instant. A sharp, primal burst that cracked the stillness of the house like a dish thrown at a wall. She slammed the envelope on the counter, scattering the pages across the marble like shrapnel. How could he do this? How dare he do this? She reached for her phone, started typing a message, some unhinged rant she probably thought would corner me into backing off, but stopped halfway through. What could she even say? Please don't use the truth against me. She deleted it. Typed again. Deleted again. Then threw the phone on the couch, chest heaving, eyes wild. Because this wasn't just another scare tactic. This was formal, filed, structured. Every dotted I felt like a tiny dagger to her ego. And worst of all, it was effective. She was no longer the one silently slipping away, leaving the family to rot while she chased bar tabs and approval from people whose names her son didn't even know. I was the one walking away now, and I wasn't slamming the door behind me. I was locking it, document by document, testimony by testimony. until her access was nothing but a memory she couldn't revise. The narrative had shifted, not just in court, not just legally, but fundamentally. She wasn't the abandoned wife. She was the absentee, and the record said so. Friday morning, she woke up convinced she still had pieces left to play. The panic from the legal notice hadn't faded, not even slightly, but somewhere between denial and desperation, a new fantasy had taken root in her head. If I take back control of the finances, I can still steer this. She had no idea the wheel had already been detached and sold. She wrapped herself in a robe, hair still unbrushed, and settled at the kitchen counter with her laptop. Fingers trembling, she logged into our joint bank account. She'd always considered it our money, even though she hadn't paid a single bill in months. I never argued it, never rubbed it in, just paid everything quietly. Until now. Access denied. She blinked, refreshed the page, tried again. This user is no longer authorized to view this account. She tried the savings, then the brokerage, then the emergency fund she never asked about but always assumed she'd get half of in the divorce she thought she'd initiate on her terms. Same response. Locked. She opened a new tab and logged into the car lease portal. Maybe she'd pull the documents, prove she co-owned the vehicle, maybe even sell it before I got wise. Access denied. Account no longer active under your credentials. She froze. Hit back. Tried again. Same thing. Then a third time, on instinct, on ego. Her reflection in the laptop screen was now a woman she wouldn't have hired to water her plants. Eyes hollow, lips dry, shoulders hunched. She typed fast now, sweating, pulling up the mortgage info. Nothing. Then an alert message popped up. Property now managed by the Adler Trust entity. She didn't know what that meant. Not really. But it sounded permanent. It was the house, the accounts, even the damn HOA autopay. Everything was now legally structured under a trust I'd set up 6 months ago. Quietly, legally, cleanly. I hadn't moved out. I'd moved around her. And now, there was nothing left to lean on. She picked up her phone and dialed me. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. On the third try, she finally got the outgoing message. This line is no longer available for personal calls. That was it. No warmth. No anger. Just finality. She slammed the phone down on the counter and started pacing like a lioness in a zoo enclosure. Sharp turns, eyes scanning the room for something to attack. But there was no one to scream at. No man standing there to accuse. No crowd to perform for. Just her and the mess she made. She opened the fridge. Empty except for almond milk, a near-expired hummus, and a juice box. The groceries hadn't been restocked in days. She opened the cabinets. No coffee. No cereal. No breadcrumbs to follow. Because I hadn't been shopping for her. Just for our son and me. She gripped the edge of the countertop, knuckles white. Her breathing grew rapid, shallow. She started mumbling things, legal threats, nonsense about marital property, about her half. But all the words bounced off the walls like rubber darts. Because here's what she hadn't figured out. This wasn't court prep. This was the separation. Her exit had already begun. Not with a bang, not with a suitcase, but with keystrokes. With the trust, the refiled deeds, the custodial affidavits, the private credit lines. And yes, the line she was no longer authorized to call. She thought we'd negotiate, that I'd flinch. Instead, I left her there, trapped in a house she didn't own, with a car she didn't control, surrounded by accounts she couldn't touch, staring into the echo chamber of her own fading authority. She'd spent months leaving me behind. Now, she'd finally caught up. Monday morning, she pulled into the elementary school parking lot like it was her battlefield. Engine idling too long, sunglasses hiding the mess she hadn't managed to fix. She was overdressed for a parent-teacher drop-in, blazer too sharp, perfume too loud for 8:15 a.m. But she thought the right look might still earn her access. She didn't want a conference, she wanted reassurance. Proof she still mattered. She marched past the office like she owned the place. The receptionist offered a polite smile, but she didn't check in. She turned straight down the hall, heels echoing on tile, stopping at room 104. The door was open just a crack. She peered in and saw Ms. Hampton, their son's teacher, arranging art supplies for the morning session. She knocked once and stepped inside. "Hi, I'm Rachel Adler, Josh's mom. I just wanted a quick word." Ms. Hampton looked up, caught slightly off guard, then put on her professional smile. "Of course. I'm actually expecting Mr. Adler for the scheduled check-in. Is everything all right?" Rachel blinked. "He scheduled it? Without me?" Ms. Hampton hesitated, then walked over to her desk and pulled up the file folder. She flipped through the pages, then turned it gently so Rachel could see it. Primary contact, Daniel Adler. Secondary guardian, Rachel Adler. The words might as well have been carved in concrete. I'm sorry, Miss Hampton said, polite but firm. For all updates or scheduling, we're required to go through the primary guardian listed on the record. That's school policy now. Rachel's throat dried up. He changed this. Miss Hampton paused. The form was updated 6 weeks ago. Signed and notarized. Everything's been transitioned per district protocol. Rachel's mouth moved, but made no sound. Her arms crossed instinctively. She tried to smile, tried to spin something about work hours and misunderstandings, but the teacher had already turned back to her clipboard. If you'd like to speak with me directly, she said without looking up, Mr. Adler can approve a secondary session and add you to the calendar. Right, Rachel croaked. Of course. That makes sense. She backed out of the classroom like someone leaving a stranger's funeral. The hallway felt colder now. Longer. She passed the wall of crayon drawings, saw her son's name on a cutout leaf for the gratitude tree. It read, I'm thankful for Dad. He always shows up. Her steps quickened. She didn't want to cry in the school hallway. Back at her car, she yanked open the door, threw her bag into the passenger seat, and collapsed into the driver's seat with a gasp that almost sounded like laughter. Like the final slap of irony had just landed. And then she saw it. Tucked under the windshield wiper, a folded sheet of printer paper, the kind kids use for drawings. Her heart seized for half a second. Maybe it's a card. Maybe he made me something. She stepped out and unfolded it. 2 stick figures under a bright yellow sun. A bench. A swing. The taller stick figure had glasses, mine. The smaller one had spiky brown lines. Our son's hair. To the side, a blank space. No third figure. Just grass. At the bottom, in crayon. Just us two now. Her hand dropped to her side, the drawing hanging limp like a flag at half-mast. Her throat tightened. Her eyes filled, but the tears didn't fall. Not yet. Because the weight wasn't just sadness. It was displacement. Even her son, in the simplest language possible, had redrawn the family without her. She was no longer default. No longer assumed. She was a guest in her own child's life. And like any guest, she now had to request permission, if she wanted to be seen at all. She sat by the window on Tuesday morning, staring at the hedge I trimmed 3 days earlier, now slightly overgrown again, just enough to irritate her. It used to annoy me how quickly it grew back. Now it was her turn. That's what happens when you think things will wait for you. Her phone hadn't rung in 2 days. Not from friends. Not from her sister. Not even the group chat she used to dominate with filtered selfies and hilarious dating memes. The silence was suffocating, but not total. She still had one number left on speed dial. The lawyer. Her new one. The one she hired in a rush after Susan flipped sides and took her calm, quiet competence with her. She'd called him 5 times yesterday. No answer. 2 emails. A voicemail that might have come off more desperate than she intended. Now, finally, the phone rang. She jumped like she'd been electrocuted, nearly knocking over her untouched tea. Scrambled to answer. Rachel, the voice said, low and quick, like he'd just come out of a wind tunnel. Yes, finally. What's going on? Why haven't you? I've reviewed the documents, he cut in. All of them. His tone wasn't annoyed. It was something worse. Defeated. The structure is devastating, he continued. Every document your husband submitted is time-stamped, cross-referenced, and backed by third-party statements. Teachers, caregivers, home logs. Even the school's attendance software shows you haven't signed in once in over a year. She opened her mouth, but he kept going. He's built a timeline that paints you as willfully neglectful. Not just distracted or overworked, but absent. Absent with intent. That's not true, she started, but her voice cracked. He didn't stop. The judge won't even flinch, Rachel. You need to understand that. This isn't a he said, she said. This is a structured, chronological, sworn record. He's built the custody equivalent of a no-fly zone. She gripped the phone tighter. So what are you saying? That I lose him? That I lose everything? I'm saying, he replied, and now his voice slowed, that if you try to fight this the traditional way, you'll be litigating from a defensive corner for years, spending money you don't have, building arguments you can't prove, and facing a courtroom where your own son's artwork has already made its way into the judge's hands. She stopped breathing for a second. He let the silence settle, then added, almost reluctantly, my legal advice is to settle. Quietly, while you still have a say in how this ends. She slumped against the window frame. No, that's not how this was supposed to go. I believe you, he said softly. But the law believes paper. And he has all the paper. She hung up mid-sentence. She didn't scream this time. She just sank to the floor, knees hitting tile like she'd been unplugged from her own body. Her hands slid into her hair, pulling hard, trying to wake herself up from the nightmare she'd built one lie, one night out, one empty promise at a time. It wasn't just that she'd been caught. It was that she'd been outmatched. Not by rage, not by vengeance, but by someone who prepared. Someone who didn't need to yell, or slam doors, or post online. He didn't explode. He documented. And now, she was the one cornered. Out of cards. Out of time. Out of people who believed her. The man she once mocked for being too passive had simply waited for the moment she'd call him cold, so he could finally show her what cold really looked like. Wednesday morning arrived cold and clinical, like someone had drained all the color out of the world overnight. She got up early, earlier than she had in months. Showered, picked out a blazer that still fit, applied makeup with trembling hands, and tried to remember what poise looked like. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she believed the right outfit, the right tone, might still tilt something back in her favor. That maybe she could perform her way out of this. She arrived at the courthouse 15 minutes early, sat on the bench outside courtroom 3C, legs crossed tightly, folder in hand. Empty folder. Just a few scribbled notes, a half-baked statement she had written at 2 a.m. Her lawyer arrived shortly after, briefcase full, expression grim. He barely made eye contact. 10 minutes later, I walked in. No lawyer. No entourage. Just me and a single black folder tucked under my arm. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. I walked straight to the defendant's table and sat down like I'd rehearsed it 100 times. Because I had. The judge entered, an older man with a calm gaze and too much experience to be impressed by emotion. He adjusted his glasses, flipped open the binder of documents I'd submitted, and took his time. Page after page. Affidavits, logs, emails, audio transcripts, drawings, teacher notes, financial statements. All of it there, dated, cross-verified, curated like a museum of her absence. When he finally spoke, his tone was flat, factual. "This is remarkably organized," he said, flipping one last page and closing the binder. Then he looked up, first at me, then at her. "Ms. Adler, do you dispute the timeline presented here?" She opened her mouth, inhaled sharply, eyes wide, about to launch into some speech about working mothers and blurred lines and emotional complexities. But before she could get a single word out, her own lawyer placed a hand on her wrist. "Don't," he whispered. The courtroom went still. A single fluorescent light buzzed overhead. The judge leaned back in his chair, laced his fingers together. "This is not abandonment," he said. "This is preparation." He reached for his pen. "I'm granting the request for temporary full custody to the father," he said, signing the order without hesitation, pending full review. She broke. No screams. No dramatic sobs. Just the slow, horrifying realization that this wasn't a temporary storm, it was a landslide, and she was already buried under it. She slumped forward, covering her face with both hands, shoulders shaking. Her mascara smudged instantly, bleeding into her palms. The only sound she made was a kind of silent heaving, grief trying to come out through a locked throat. Across the room, I stood up, calmly. No smile, no victory parade, just done. I tucked the folder under my arm, nodded once to the bailiff, and walked toward the exit. Didn't glance back, not even once, because this wasn't about punishment. It was about permanence, and some endings don't come with fireworks. They come with a signature, a courtroom seal, and a man who simply walks away while she finally realizes. He already had.